All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited to introduce a guy who's not only worked with billion-dollar brands like FedEx, Goodyear, and Disney, but who's also been dedicated to helping entrepreneurs and auto detailers like you increase your sales, your cash flow, boost your bottom line. Please welcome America's Chief Profit Officer, David Tyberski.
All right. Davey
So,
Cypress. Good, Barry. I'm sorry. I
yeah,
can't.
no worries. And I gotta apologize, Davey. I always mess up your last name. That's hard for me.
All right, man.
But there's one thing that I would really love to know about
Yeah, man. What do you got?
you. You have this America's Chief Profit Officer. I see it everywhere with you. How did you earn that title?
Man, that's a great question. So what happened? It's kind of similar to like your journey, I'm sure, with SB3. I mean, you go out, you do speaking, you do promotion, you're talking about what you do. Like in my keynotes, to answer your question specifically is, it's doing a lot of keynotes here in the US and across the globe, helping companies improve their profitability. It's like I started like at the end of my talk, I like to hang out. Like I'm not a karaoke speaker. As a matter of fact, if you're watching the video, you need to make sure you give me your input so I can make sure I serve you well at Barry's event. But I'm not the karaoke speaker. I don't come with like a slide deck or anything, right? The other thing that makes me different than all the other speakers is like I come for a whole event. Like when I come in to speak, whether it's Microsoft, Kellogg's, Goodyear, Manpower, whatever, like I'm not just in and out. Like I don't just come do my hour keynote. I actually will stay for the whole event, which I'm going to be at your whole event too, because here's what I love. I love hanging out with the folks before, during, and right after my talk, because that's where the real magic happens. As a matter of fact, we're doing that little mastermind for some of the folks who want that upgrade where they get kind of some more personal attention. So I was doing a lot of my talks, and like all of a sudden people start saying, Dave, you're like America's chief profit officer. And I'm like, yes, I am. So I didn't come up with that myself. People, after my talk, based on what I talk about, like the universal language of profit and some small things that will make big changes in their business, they said, you're like America's chief profit officer. So yeah, which teaching point. When someone starts calling you something and you like it, definitely register that trademark. So that's a registered trademark here in the US Patent Office, and it is America's chief profit officer. So that's how I came up with the name, man. They were like calling me that, and I'm like, that's one name I actually like. So let's use it.
Yeah, no, and it's great because you're the real deal. And I say this because I can speak in automotive detailing, and I can get out there and talk to anybody at any given time about auto detailing. It just naturally comes for me. But you're actually working with huge companies like FedEx. I mean, Goodyear with the tire brand, Disney. Like how did you get to that point to where they're paying you to come out, speak, work a business, and just totally help them do whatever they need to revamp a little bit. I would assume, at that point, these companies are already established. You're trying to help them. Like, how did you get to that point?
Sure. Good question. So yeah, well, look, it's the same thing in any detailer's business. As you know, our son Dylan runs the Affluent Auto Spa here in San Antonio. There's really five key parts of any business. Whether you're talking about Microsoft, Kellogg's, Apple, doesn't matter. There's five key things. And notice I'll do this in order. Thumb, the biggest, strongest, marketing, sales, customer service, operations, getting paid. But the thumb is the most important. So the answer to your question specifically is I had to figure out how am I going to market myself to get into not just those companies, but also a lot of large organizations, associations that have brought me in. And I speak for MTE and the IDA and many others, but I had to figure out the thumb first because the thumb is the most important. It drives your detailing business. You got to figure out the marketing first. And even though the pinky's the smallest, it's also very important. How are you going to get paid? So one of the things that kind of makes me different in all the speaking and consulting that I do is whatever I'm recommending, I'm not just like, look, I'm not going to say millions, but there's thousands of folks that will teach you internet marketing. But the challenge sometimes is those folks get stuck in the silo. They only think about internet marketing, but what they don't realize is what you're doing here in internet marketing, how does it affect you getting paid? How does it affect your customer service? How does it affect your sales? And that's one thing that makes me different, Barry, is I look at all five areas of the business before I make a recommendation, and I make sure that we don't look. I'm not here to jack anything up for your attendees. I want to complement what they're already doing. So that's one of the key things for me is it goes back to those five key areas of your business. And from my keynote speaking business back to, how I've been able to work with billion dollar brands all the way down to startup entrepreneurs and detailers, is because I look at all five of those components of the business. And last thing I'll say on that, because some detailers may have a disconnect already. Like, yeah, okay, I'm going to go to Barry's event. We're gonna have a great time. This guy's only work. Well, hold on. Even though I've worked with all those billion-dollar companies, here's one thing I've always done. What do we take that's working well in a billion-dollar company, and how do we make it work in the detailing business? And the other thing too is I haven't just worked with all those large companies, but I've worked with 15 different industries. So I'm able to take what works well. Great example, dentistry. I have private clients that are dentists. How do we make their marketing work? And then more importantly, how do I tweak that just a little bit to make it work for the auto detailing business? I got a prop for you. So for instance, this comes right out of the dentistry world. When you go to the dentist and you're done with your teeth cleaning, they give you a kit. Has like the dental floss and the toothbrush. And so my mind is always like, how do I make that work for detailers? Selfishly, how do I make that work for Dylan at the Affluent Auto Spa? So we created an introduction box. So every time he does a ceramic coating on a Lambo or whatever it might be, he gives the client an introduction box. And I'm actually going to cover this at your event and break it down piece by piece of how effective it is and how it's helped us double our, not referrals, how it's helped us double our introductions. And I'm going to dive into that at the event. So I'm excited to talk
That's
about that with your
Yeah,
attendees.
that's interesting. Referrals versus introductions. And I'm real big on introductions and meeting people. I'm a network guy. I
Okay.
love that. So I will pay attention the whole way through your speech with that.